beautiful people of the world, I'm back again, and I have to post a video today, so I had to film something. So I'm here because last year, for like 3 years prior, I had not read a book in like a very long time, or I had not read a book that like I enjoyed, because I had joined a book club and like all the books that they had chosen, I didn't like them. So obviously that's going to put somebody into a reading slump if they're being forced to read something that they do not enjoy. And I'm here to show you everything I've read since I've been out of that slump. And technically I had 2 slumps, but one was more of like a mini slump, and I only like didn't read for like 3 months. But I'm here to show you all the books that I've read since I've been out of the slump, plus the book that got me out of my slump. But I'm not going to show that one first because I'm not going in order. I'm going in the order that they're on my shelf and not the order that I read them in, because that'll make it easier for me to figure out where they went, because my books are organized by color. So yeah, I'm going to get into that. First we have Things We Never Got Over and Things We Hide from the Light. And these I put on my #1 book of the year when I made my video. I've said that it was the best book that I had read all year, which I do actually think I changed my mind about that. And it's not because they're bad, because there are some books that I changed the ratings genuinely because they were bad, but they're not bad at all. They're like really good. I love these books. However, I almost dropped it. I haven't recommended these books to like anybody. So I feel like when there's a really good book that you like, you would recommend it to everybody. So it's not like a recommendable book. I feel like not a lot of people would like it in the way I liked it. I liked it because of the end. I'm sure I liked it for other reasons too, but that's one part that I can remember was like the end. I loved the epilogue because I'm not gonna like get into what the epilogue was, but I loved the epilogue because it was like kind of what I want every romance book epilogue to be. So yeah, these were like my #1. This was my #1 series of the year, I will say. This one's very heavily annotated, and when I finished this one, I like needed to get the second one like the next day because I desired it, and I did. And these are very thick books. They're like over 500 pages long each, but Lucy Score's writing, and it's a really tiny font too, but Lucy Score's writing literally makes it go by really fast. Like I probably finished both of these in like 3 days, which is really weird for like a book this thick. But yeah, that's Things We Never Got Over. Next, we have another one that also made it into my top 5 books of the year. I don't know what placement it was in, but The Summer of Broken Rules. I read this in the summer, and I loved it because it's probably my favorite YA romance I've ever read. And I recommended it to my mom, and she did not enjoy it as much as I did, but I loved it. And I think the reason why is because I annotated it and she didn't. And I feel like when you annotate, you notice a lot of things that other people won't. So like this book has some really good quotes. I loved the characters. It's probably my favorite love interest in a book ever is this one. I made a video about this book on my Instagram. Like this was the book boy that I liked the most. Loved the characters. This has lots of Taylor Swift references, and that's always a good thing in my book. And I underlined all the Taylor Swift references, and I just loved it. It was a really good book. It's good for the summer. I probably wouldn't recommend this to you if it's not summer, but it's also very water damaged because all of my favorite books always get water damaged. Don't ask me why, it's just I can never have a nice thing. Next we have Lock Every Door, which I think I rated a 3 stars, but honestly, like looking back, I did really enjoy reading this book because I love Riley Sager, and I'll go into that later when I get to one of those other books that I read this last spurt of reading, because it's been like a long time. But yeah, I rated this 3 stars, and 3 stars, I feel like we need a better star rating system, because this one's 3 stars, and then like books that I did not really enjoy are also 3 stars. So I need to kind of figure out my star rating, but I did really enjoy this. It's good if you like thrillers. The end was like really strange, and it's not what I expected, but I mean, I guess that's what a thriller is supposed to be. I think that the reason why I was, like, kind of disappointed with, like, the end of this book is because in the other Riley Sager book I read, there was something kind of, like, paranormal that happened, and it didn't seem like it needed to be something that paranormally happened. Like, they could have gone, like, doing a realistic thing instead of, like, a paranormal thing. And this one, it seemed like there could have been a paranormal aspect, and they didn't. They did, like, a weird, like, realistic aspect. But yeah, I did enjoy this book, and it was fun, and it was fast-paced, and I probably finished this in, like, 2 days. I finished thrillers really fast, and Riley Sager is my favorite thriller author ever. Here's another 3-star book. It's Sunkissed by Casey West, and this book is 3 stars, but I did not like it as much as I liked Lock Every Door. And this book was kind of like a really weird choose for me, because I normally, like, choose, when I'm buying books, I normally choose books that I've, like, seen on, like, Book Talk or BookTube or Bookstagram or whatever. I choose books that I have seen, like, heard good things about. I don't think I'd ever even heard of this book. I just kind of chose it because the cover was cute, which is, like, good for me, like, getting out of that sort of, regular book thing. But it was good. It was cute. It was short. It was probably, let me look at my shelf. Yeah, I would say it's probably my least favorite or second least favorite romance I read this year. Just because it wasn't really, like, what I was expecting, and I don't know. I didn't really like the characters very much. You know, there's always those things that you dislike about something, but I did read this when I was going to, like, a summer camp place, not to stay, just to, like, visit, and it takes place in, like, a summer camp place, so I do remember it being very fitting for, like, what I was doing, and I started reading it around a campfire, so it does not smell like campfire, but it reminds me of the campfire, so that's one thing. Next, I have Float by Kate Marchant, and I can't remember what I rated this. I think this was also 3 stars, but it was better than Sunkissed, and it was not as good as Lock Every Door. Did I say the title? I don't know, but it's called Float. This book was a Wattpad written book that they had published, and it doesn't seem Wattpad-y, I don't think, but the girl, Waverly, is the main character. The girl kind of seems kind of Wattpad-y in the beginning, at least. She started writing this at 15, I think, and I'm 15, and I'm a published author. So that's kind of cool that, like, that's something. I do remember enjoying this when I read it, but it's not super annotated. I annotate everything, so just because something's annotated does not necessarily mean that it's, like, a good book. It just means that there were certain quotes that I liked. So that's about the extent of the annotation here. But yeah, I don't really have much else to say about this book. I have not thought about it really since then. Next is Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. And this book was not the first Carly Fortune book I had read. And I don't know why I bought this book when I did not have a good experience with her last book, and I'll go into that when I get there. But Meet Me at the Lake, I think I rated this a 2 stars or a 1 star. I think it's actually a 1 star because I only had 2 1-star reads, and this was one of them. And no hate, because I know this is some people's, like, favorite book, but I think that I just don't like Carly Fortune. And I don't know why. It's just both of her books I didn't like. And it's weird because, like, she's such a popular author right now, but for some reason I just did not like this at all. I guess I'm a teenager, so, like, I like to read about other teenagers. These were adults, and they kind of, like, they talked about, like, businesses, and, like, they run businesses, and they're adults, and it was just kind of boring, I think. I don't know. Did not like the characters, did not like the plot, did not like anything about this book. I did annotate some quotes, though. I don't know what it was. But I remember annotating this and being like, is it even worth it to annotate? Like, I don't even like this book at all. So, yeah, that's that. Next, we have The Summer I Turned Pretty, and this book, actually, let me get the rest of the series. The Summer I Turned Pretty series I loved these books, and I'm probably going to reread them this summer just because of how much I enjoyed them. And these were the second books I read getting out of my reading slump. So, like, I read a book and then I read this series right afterwards. And these books, like, opened my eyes to the possibilities of romance books. Because I had never really read romance before at all until I read these books. Because I was definitely, like, a fantasy kid. And obviously I hadn't read for, like, a year, and I'm 15. So, at the time when I was reading fantasy, like, when I wrote my first book, I was reading, like, middle grade fantasy, and when I wrote my second book, I was reading, like, Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, and Six of Crows, and stuff like that. So, I'd never read a romance book before, and so these books, like, showed me the possibilities of, like, romance books. And I gave the first one a 5 stars, the second one a 4 stars, and the third one 3 stars. So, they're all pretty highly rated. It's just that I feel like the first one is definitely the best, and you don't necessarily have to read the other two if you don't want to. I did. I watched the series. I'm waiting for the 3rd season, and this literally controlled my personality for, like, the entirety of summer, and, like, I'm still obsessed with this series. I constantly talk about the show all the time. So, this is, like, just a really cute summer book, and it made me get into the summer mood, and I loved that. It is also water damaged, so you'll see that as a theme for, like, some of my favorite books. Next, we have my least favorite book that I've read since I got on my book slump. And it's sad because I don't like to, like, say bad things about books because I'm an author, and I know that, like, if people said bad things about my books, I'd be upset, but they're probably not going to find this video. But The Jet Setters by Amanda Earwood? I don't know. And I did hear about this book before I bought it. I found this at the thrift store, and I had seen this book before, and I was like, oh, like, cool. That's a book I want to read. I'd never read a contemporary book before, which is weird because I've written a contemporary book, and I don't know. You don't really need plotting skills to write a contemporary book, because if you don't know, contemporary is literally the art of not having a plot to the book at all. And I think that that's why I didn't like this book. But again, this was also adult characters talking about business and, like, taxes, and I don't like that at all. There were things that had happened that I just did not like. Like, the end was weird. Everything was weird. I had no clue what was going on. I kind of trudged through this book just so that I could get to reading a different book. And I don't remember what I read after this, but I do know that it was, like, a 5-star read that I read after this, so it was, like, good that I had gotten that book after this one. But yeah, this was my least favorite book of the year. It was a 1 star. There's not even any tabs in it. I think I did underline, like, 1 quote, and that was literally all. And I don't know. I don't really remember what happened in this book. I could not tell you. I just know they go on a cruise. And I don't know. It was not for me. Somebody else might get this book and really enjoy it, but I did not like it. Next, I have a better one, People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. And this was not my first Emily Henry book. I read Beach Read first, and I'll get into that when I get there. But I was really excited to read People We Meet on Vacation because Beach Read was one of my favorite books ever. I think it might have also gotten onto my top 5 books of the year. So I was telling my mom when I was reading this, like, it's not necessarily that I get excited to read Emily Henry because of the writing, but I just like to, I like to hold this book. Like, this book, it's got such a nice cover. Her covers are so cute, and they smell good, and they're, like, a good size, but I do enjoy reading them. Like, she's got some really good quotes. She's a good author. I have, the only books that I haven't read by her are Book Lovers and Happy Place, and I have Book Lovers on my pile back there, and I don't have Happy Place, but I do need to get it. But this was a 4 stars, I think. I did not like it as much as Beach Read, but the standards were really high because Beach Read's, like, one of my favorites. So I just kind of set the standards high because it was the same author. But 4 stars is still a really good rating for me. I like normally 3 stars is like kind of a neutral standpoint. 4 and 5 is like better, and 2 and 1 are like the worst ones. So that's good that this one got that far, but I did not like it as much as Beach Read. Next we have Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. And again, I just don't think I'm a Carly Fortune girly. Which is weird because at the time that I read this book, I gave it a 4 stars. And now looking back, I don't think it was a 4 stars. I think it was more of like a 2 stars. And there's a lot of annotating, and I think that's why I thought it was a 4 stars. But looking back, and like, this was the book I read right after I read the Summer I Turned Pretty series. So like, looking back, I had only read like 2 books getting out of my book slump before I read this. So I was not expanded to the possibilities of books yet. And I gave this a 4 stars. And I think it would have been a better book if it was just their perspectives when they were teenagers, but again, I just don't like perspectives of adults really, and the only way I'll like them is if it's like done right. So I did not like this book at all. Well, I mean, I kind of did. At the time I did, and like looking back and like reading this book was like a good part of summer, and there are certain books that like just remind me of summer, and I guess all of these books kind of do, all these summer books, because I read a lot in summer, but this was a good book during summer. I remember reading it during summer, and so it was like good memories, but it was just not a very good book. Next, we have Beach Read by Emily Henry, and this was the book that I was talking about when I was reading People on Vacation. That's what it's called, right? People We Meet on Vacation. I'm like genuinely scared to like get a title wrong and then be like, oh, I love this book so much when I like literally just got the title wrong. But Beach Read was my first Emily Henry book, and it was my favorite Emily Henry book so far. And I think it got onto some of my favorite books, like my favorite books of the year list, just because I loved this book. Like, there were so many good quotes, and I enjoyed it because it's talking about writers. The characters in the books are writers, and I like to read about writers, I feel. I figured that out. It just kind of inspires me to write myself, so I like to read about writers, and this is about writers. So it had a lot of good quotes. Again, I just like Emily Henry's books as far as like aesthetic of them. Like, I love the cover. It's just great. I love Emily Henry's books, her style of book covers. Yeah, this was a 5 stars. Next, we have Every Last Secret by A.R. Torrey. And this book, I think, was a 3 stars. It's also a thriller, but it was my first thriller that was not written by Riley Sager. So I had never read another author of a thriller before. And this was probably my least favorite thriller that I've read, but it was not bad. Like, I read this all in one day. I read this on, like, a road, like, a small road trip. I read the whole thing in one day. And I think that could be why I don't remember it very well, is because it did not last in my brain because I only read it for one day. But I do remember enjoying it, and it went by fast, and it was easy to read. So, pretty good book. Next, we have If He Had Been With Me, and If Only I Had Told Her. And these are pretty recent read for me. I had If He Had Been With Me literally on my pile for like 6 months, not ever picking it up, and when I decided to pick it up, I just happened to finish it like 3 days before the second one came out. So I've read both of them now, and If He Had Been With Me was a 5 stars. I like to read about teenagers, and this was teenagers. I liked the quotes, I liked the characters. I read it pretty quickly. I don't like how the cover gets fingerprints so quickly, because it's a matte cover, and black. But I do really enjoy like looking at these covers, and I like the way these look on my shelf because I like the way the spines look. This was a 5 stars. This was a 4 stars. I annotated these pretty heavily. Laura Nolan, her writing is really good. I loved her quotes, especially in the first book. There were so many quotes that I like had to stop and be like, I must like annotate this. Like, I need to have this written down. And I posted a bunch of pictures of me with these books on my Instagram because I was like, I loved these books. So these were very big point in time because these were the books I read after I was in my second reading slump, and I'll show you the book that put me into that like second reading slump. So this was kind of like what kind of got me out of my slump was these books. So now I'm in the flow of reading again thanks to Laura Nolan. I love you, Laura. Next we have Summer at Firefly Beach by Jenny Hale, and I believe this was a 2 stars, but the way I found this book was like really interesting. I wanted to read this book because I had heard good things about it, so I added it to my Amazon cart, and then like last minute I took it off the Amazon cart and was like, I'll wait for that one, like I don't need that one right now, I can get it later. I went to Dollar Tree and I found this in the dollar book section, and it's not like the regular version of the book. Like I found this book at Barnes & Noble and it's formatted like differently. This book is like pretty small compared to like other books that I like, the books I normally read, and the pages are like thinner, and that's not how they are in the Barnes & Noble version, but it's because this was like a Dollar Tree version. But for a book that I found for $1, like it was not bad, like it was an enjoyable time. I read this in the rain, that's one specific memory I have, but this is your reminder, if you go to Dollar Tree, check the book section, because sometimes they have really good things. Next, we have The Rest of the Story by Sarah Dessen, and I rated this a 4 stars, I think, which is weird because it only has 1 tab, but this book I feel really bad about because I saw this cover, and I didn't like the cover because of the cartoon people on it. And there is another cover now when I've researched this book a little bit more. There is another cover that I should have bought instead because I don't really like this cover like at all. But because of the cover, I didn't pick it up. Like I had it because I heard good things about it, but because of the cover, I did not want to read it, which is terrible because like the saying is like don't judge a book by its cover, and I literally judged this book by its cover and literally let it sit on my pile for like 4 months before picking it up, which I feel really bad about now because this is like one of my favorite romance books that I read this year. It didn't make it into my top books of the year, but I did really enjoy it. It reminded me a lot of the Summer of Broken Rules because in the Summer of Broken Rules there's like a big family and you have to like learn all of their names so that you know like who they are. They're constantly like just hanging out like in each other's cabins, things like that. Kind of reminded me of this, which also had kind of a big family and they're always like in each other's houses. Like it was a really cute story, and I'm glad that I picked it up and read it because I left it and I feel really bad. Next we have what I think was actually my favorite book of the year, even though it placed second in my book wrap-up on my Instagram. We have The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager, and I have recommended this book to so many people now because I loved this book so much. It was my first thriller that I had ever read, and it was perfect. Like, I loved everything about it. It got ruined because it's my favorite book, and I can't have any of my favorite books be nice. But, it was my first thriller. Again, there was, like, something I did not expect that could have been in the other thriller, and I would have thought it made more sense. But I did like everything about this book. It was fast-paced. It was easy to read. I never knew what was happening. There was, like, 5 plot twists. I recommended this to my mom. She read it. She didn't like it as much as I did. I recommended this to my cousin. She has not read it yet. And I recommended this to one of my friends, and she's currently reading it, and she's also loving it. So this is my number 1, like, recommendation, and I really enjoyed it, and I think it was my top book of the year. Next we have the book that got me out of my book slump originally, Light Lark by Alex Astor. And this was also the first book I annotated, and there's like a butt ton of tabs in here because I didn't annotate it as I annotate my books now. I annotated it as I break my annotation styles up into 3 different categories, and the one I normally use is as a reader, and then there's as a writer, which I will sometimes just combine with reader, and it's just like underlining certain like quotes that underlining things as a reader is underlining quotes and things that you liked about the book. Underlining things as a writer is underlining the structures of the sentences and like certain metaphors that you like certain wording that you enjoy. And then there's annotating things like a teacher, where you literally, yeah, I did this. I don't remember. I had a guide for what this was. Okay. So pink was quotes, orange was flowery, pretty, poetic language, green was character relationship, and blue was funny. But the thing was, I did not underline them when I liked the quote. I just literally underlined it whenever I found any of those things. So there's a lot of things here. This book I had originally rated a 4 stars, but this was also the book that got me out of my book slump. So I hadn't read anything in like a really long time. And now I have kind of chopped this down to like 2 stars. And it's not a bad book. I feel like people either absolutely love this book or absolutely hate this book. And I was kind of more like in between. Like, I can see both sides of people's love and hate. And I like Alex Astor as far as like what she posts on social media. She's the most followed author on social media right now. But I feel like there's a lot of controversy about this book. So, yeah, it got me out of my book slump. So if that helps you guys, if you're in a book slump, you can pick it up. But I think that like there's other books that you can use to get out of your book slump rather than this. This is just what happened to be mine. Next, we have Twilight, New Moon, Eclipse, Breaking Dawn, and The Short Second Life of Brie Tanner. And this is a lot of books to go through, but I'll try to tell you kind of my thoughts about each one. The first Twilight was my favorite out of the series. It was easy to read. It's YA, so there's like big font, big text. And I annotated it. I enjoyed reading it. It's a classic. You have to read it at some point in your life. Then we have New Moon. I think I gave this a 3 stars. Could be wrong. I don't know. Did not enjoy this one as much. Don't remember why. They kind of all blur together. I can't remember what was in what. This one was a 2 stars. Eclipse was a 2 stars. I didn't like the characters. Sorry to say. I just don't like the characters in this series at all. Don't like Bella, don't like Jacob, I don't like Renesmee in the last one. Don't ask me why. Number 1 Renesmee hater. Just don't like her. Breaking Dawn. This was what put me into my second book slump because it's so big and like so many things like just don't. Everything is dragged on to make this super big. I think she just had like a page count that she wanted to get to. So this took me forever. I got into my book slump like halfway through, and then I was like, okay, I need to power through and read the rest of this because I want to read more books. Like, I want to get out of this book slump. So I did finish this book. I think this was a 2 stars. Not sure. And then after that, which I think you can read it anytime after Eclipse, but I read it after I read everything. I read The Short Second Life of Brie Tanner, which in Eclipse, there's a character called Brie Tanner, and she's a young vampire that, like, goes around with the villains. She's, like, part of their clan. And then when she gets to the Cullens, she surrenders because she doesn't want to die or whatever. So they're about to take her into their family, and then Victoria comes and is like, yeah, she can't be here anymore. Like, she can't stay alive. She's an immortal child. I don't care if you didn't make her. She can't stay. So they kill her. But, so it's a short second life. It's a novella, and it was my first novella, and it was pretty easy to read. I think this was like a 2 stars, though. Next, we have Love and Gelato, Love and Luck, and Love and Olives, and I guess I kind of had another mini reading slump during reading Love and Olives, but I'll get into that after I go through all of them. Love and Gelato, I think, was a 4 stars. I could be wrong. It might have been a 5 star. I don't remember. But it was not, like, amazing, but it was not bad. I did love it. I loved this cover. The entire time I wanted gelato. I did get gelato, like the pink one right here, because I needed it, because I craved it while reading this book, because this picture right here made me crave gelato. I don't know why. Next was Love and Luck, and I don't remember what this star rating was, but this one was a smaller one. It was easy to get through, easy to read. And then there was Love and Olives, and I did not like this book. The first 2 books were pretty good. Like, they were not my favorite books I've ever read, but they were not bad. This one felt like I was reading a textbook about Greece, but, like, told as a story. So there were certain parts where it literally just, like, told me about the history of Greece, like, literally told me about, like, Greek gods, Greek mythology, and I thought I was reading a romance book. But it turns out these books are actually contemporary books, so it's not a romance, and that's my fault for going into it not knowing what it was. But this literally read like a textbook with, like, some romance, like a textbook with some characters in it. And the last book that I have to show you today, I just actually recently read this book, and it's One of Us is Lying by Karen McManus, and I enjoyed this book. It was a 4 stars. It was my first murder mystery, but I'm currently reading another murder mystery, so that is If We Were Villains by Emil Rio, and I'm not adding it into this series because I haven't finished it yet, but this was a 4 stars. It was a murder mystery. I liked the characters. It was easy to read. I got through it pretty quickly. Yeah, that's this one. And with that, I have no other books to show you, so I'm going to be signing off. If I said anything bad about books that you like, don't take it personally, because everybody has different tastes, and I kind of said the reasons why I dislike certain books and the reasons I like certain books, so you might be able to see it from my point of view if I don't like a book that you like, but just don't take it personally. It's all fun and games in the end. I'm just using what I know. I have a lot of different opinions about things than other people as when it comes to, like, reading and writing books, so I always say things that people have, like, never heard before. So those are just my personal opinions about those books, and I hope you got ideas for what to read next, or you learned some more things, you learned about other people's perspectives of your favorite books, and I hope you enjoyed. Bye!